Absolutely. The mental health aspect, like you mentioned before, is key. I remember feeling as well that I was drowning, and it's almost a physical feeling, right? Of not being able to breathe as well. And you wake up in the morning, you have this weight on your shoulders. And it's interesting because I have been reading and getting more into the cost and the debt associated with, in this case of mind blown, with breast cancer. You would never think, but obviously, and especially in this country where health insurance is, yes, key for everything, that people are, and have been reading about this, debating whether they should go and have a radio session or a chemo session, or feed their children back home.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I'm getting all, yes,
I know.
exactly. And on my social media, I'm trying as much as I can to bring awareness to this, because it's not just, as hard as it is, of course, you have cancer now, you are ill and you have a chronic illness. And no, you also have a mortgage to pay and your light bills to pay and your treatments to pay. So I know this is not exactly what the Walter years focus on, but I just wanted also to bring this to the fore, just because if we're talking about financial health, we need to also talk about mental health. They come hand in hand.
Absolutely.
And there's an expression that I also just learned a few days ago, which is financial toxicity, in the sense that it harms you. The stress associated with it physically harms you, and who knows, may bring upon cancer or heart disease. Or
actually write that down, financial
I know.
toxicity. I find that fascinating
Please.
because I believe it. I mean, as a former social worker, we talk a lot about ACEs, which is the idea of the things that have happened in your childhood stay with you. And
Yes.
if your parents were screaming, that is inside your body and affects your DNA. And I don't see why financial health would be any different. Of course, if every day you're waking up and you're stressed and you're feeling that weight, of course it's going to affect your organs, your brain, your everyday life, your marriage, everything. Yeah, that makes sense.
Everything, even the food you intake as well.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, we could go on and on and on. That's why I wanted to bring you on, because I know financial literacy is something that cannot stay away from Mind Bloom and from mental health awareness. So this is just great. So tell me more. I want to hear more about the Walter years, but also just a brief introduction to your social worker work.
Oh,
And
sure.
were you also working in the financial realm?
No, not at all. And so that's why one of the I things that we'll probably talk about is as far as like how to become an entrepreneur or advice for entrepreneurs. But so it all started back my idea of, or my passion for working with people back in college. I was actually a communications journalism major. I thought I was going to do it, and I majored in public relations. So I love media. I love marketing. Social media is a really cool thing, also really detrimental, but also really cool. It goes both ways.
Yeah.
But I became what is called a resident assistant. So I became involved in residence life, and you're kind of the big sister of the floor. You create programs, and basically people come to you when they have a problem. So I don't know if you're familiar with Enneagrams, but I'm an Enneagram number 2.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love all that stuff, all that personality stuff. So
what type are you? What number are you?
Number 2, the helper. What are you?
I don't know exactly. I think I'm around the 5, the 6. I'm very, I have not dabbled into it super deeply. So I hear one number and I think, oh, I am that one. And then I hear the other. I think I'm all of them.
I'll have to send you that, the test of it. It's so neat. And Brene Brown has a really great podcast on it. It's good. But so number 2 is one I end up with, and then I most identify into the helper, right? Like the helper at any cost, the helper. I've evolved a little bit, but still it's in me. So I loved it. I love being the resource. I love being the person that people were coming to. And what I realized in also fulfilling that need within me, I loved seeing them grow. And I was like, this is what I want to do. I didn't want to be a teacher, but I loved helping people, helping people who are like 19, 20, 18 years old. I loved seeing them come in as freshmen, and when they were leaving as seniors, just be totally different people, or better yet, the best versions of themselves at, 21 years old. That's only 4 years. So I was like, okay, I'm a bit addicted to that feeling. And so then I did a year with AmeriCorps, and I did a mentoring program there. And that was when I fell in love with community service and civic engagement and volunteerism, and then also mentoring. And I recognized I was working with at-risk youth who were in the high school and then college students as the mentors. And to see again how much those children or youth changed and were impacted in just a year's time of having a mentor, I was like, this is it. This is the key. You need one person. And I'm not trying to be, Dalai Lama or trying to make any sort of, beautiful quote. It really takes one person to have that kind of faith in you and to tell you, to remind you of exactly who you are, exactly what your mission is, or encourage you to find that. And so that's been kind of my core of what I've been loving to do. After that, I went on to work in residence life, and then I worked in Italy actually for 3 years at a military base for, and I say with all love, military brats, so kids who are born, into the military, and talk about resiliency and just unsung heroes and just amazing kids who were trying to figure out colleges, but they had never even been to the States before because they grew up overseas. And so then I went on to work for the University of South Carolina. And when I worked there, I worked with youth in foster care. And so then a whole new kind of love for resilient kids came into play. And then the job that I had in Gettysburg was also working with a mentoring program for youth in foster care. And so my background, like I said, for the last 15 years, has been working in empowering young people. And so with the Walter years, it was one of those situations where it was coming to a close. My job, I was coming to a close. I was coming to a point where I was like, I want to be my own boss. I want to work for myself. I had grown the program 3 times the size every year that I had been there. I'd been there 3 years. So it was getting so big. And I was recognizing that at the end of the day, as much as I loved the job, I wasn't being paid my worth. I wasn't being treated my worth. There was no room to grow, to move up, which all social workers, I won't say all social workers, but a lot of social workers will deal with, where they're feeling like, I am overworked and underpaid. And I thought, you know what? Not me. This doesn't need to be me. So we created the Walter years. We made it official. And then I was able to so again, no background in it was the only background that I have in financial literacy is my own journey and my own research and everything like that. And then creating my own program, and then just kind of giving it to friends and family who said, you need to charge for this. And so now, with a baby on the way, it's going to be really great to be able to stay at home and have this business. That was another huge factor of, okay, if I'm going to quit my job and work the Walter years full time, it's beautiful knowing that, our son is on the way, and hopefully even more, more children. But I also wanted it is within me to want to empower and reach and work with people. And I am telling you, it has been so much fun to work on my own hours, work on my own schedule, be my own boss, and still have that feeling of being needed. And when I, pick up my phone, I'll have a text message from a client being like, hey, so we want to get married this year, but we're $160,000 in debt. How can we make that work? And I'm like, okay, let's talk about that. Let's talk about it. So it's really checking a lot of boxes right now for me.